Hello, and welcome to Fresh Blood, a podcast about killing it after 40, where we prove that new blood does not necessarily equal young blood. Here to discuss what it takes to have continued success through life, I'll be your host, Jolie Downs. With over 20 years of executive recruiting experience, I've learned how much we can grow and be inspired by other people's stories. I'm excited to share that with you here on Fresh Blood. Today, we are speaking with Michael Stein. Michael is an entrepreneur, actor, comedian, filmmaker, and force for good. He is the founder and CEO of Abadak, a multi-million-dollar tarp company doing good works by donating thousands of tarps to the homeless. In addition, Michael has starred in the Dirk Diggler story, as well as producing and directing documentaries, award-winning short films, and the movie Love Hollywood Style. Michael also performs stand-up comedy and is the podcast host of Long Shot Leaders. All of his ventures have an emphasis on environmental well-being and charitable causes. I can't wait to learn more. Michael, please tell me a bit about your story. And I'm curious to learn how you went from producing documentaries and short stories to starting a multi-million-dollar business within a year.
I started doing documentaries because I was a nightclub promoter and I had a great business doing that, but I wanted to be a filmmaker and an actor. So this natural segue was, I said, look, I did this documentary to get a big event. I saw these DJs and promoters were becoming popular. They were like mini celebrities. I was like a little mini celebrity in LA in my age bracket for nightclubs. So everybody would put everybody on the invite and you'd have people would come to the event. I said, why not do a documentary? And my friend, at the time, Paul Thomas Anderson he was starting to make headway in his career. So I said, I'm going to start to do documentaries on that. That'll be easy. So I did a documentary on the history of LA clubs. That did well.
Oh, that's fast.
Like 4,000 people at the Park Plaza Hotel. And then I started I wasn't into the rave scene, but I saw this scene forming. So I said, I'm going to do a documentary on this rave scene and the history of raves and house music.
Oh, interesting.
Went around the country for 4 months and filming DJs, magazine writers, and promoters, and did a documentary on that. So I said, I'm going to leave my nightclub business and I'm going to start to get into film. So I worked as a production assistant, which is getting kicked around a little bit emotionally and physically as a peon. Yeah. But I learned a lot in commercial film production. And then I did a short film after that, which won a lot of awards that you mentioned. That's the reason why I did documentaries.
Yeah. No, I'm curious because you went from production assistant, which you said is a peon. And from there, then you started creating your own. What happened in there?
I didn't want to pay for film school because I saw that my friend Paul, he dropped out of NYU after 2 weeks and he just started making films. I said, I want to learn more about the beginning, middle, and end of a production, real production. Because after my documentary, I said, I just did this on my own, but I want to see what the pros, the best. And I had friends that worked in commercial production. And I was like, when you're a PA, I was a production assistant, you're a peon. It was humbling to go from being a mini celebrity as a nightclub promoter, going to being a production assistant, to get me my coffee or go do this or empty out the cube truck with the equipment and all that stuff. But you learn a lot from the best too. Some of the best people, you get paid more per day on a commercial shoot than you do feature. So a lot of these, like these big John Schwartzman, who was like shot like all James Cameron stuff, all these big movies. He'll work on commercials as a DP because you're getting paid so much and the per diem and everything's so great in the commercials. But when you're a PA, you get to see the beginning, middle, and end, like 3-4 days of pre-production, 3 or 4 days shoot, 3 or 4 days of post-production. And I get to work with different production companies. So I learned a lot in that 3.5 years doing that over and over again.
So you knew what to do. You figured out exactly what you needed to do and you went and applied that and did it yourself.
Yeah. And then when I did my short film, Rituals and Resolutions, it was a state-of-the-art production because I met all those people and they said, we'll help you out. So then they joined in. You could only do that with a short film because a feature takes too many days.
Yeah.
But I was able to have a really great production for my short film at a low cost because of that.
That's really smart. Really smart. Now, you went from your short film production to starting your company, correct?
No, not necessarily. What happened is that I did my short film and then I got close to a movie deal in Hollywood. I met with everybody, like Joel Silver's office, Trimark Pictures, like so many big companies. And they wanted to make one of my screenplays, this script on underground gambling casino in LA, which really happen when I promote nightclubs. I used to do an underground gambling casino. So,
That worked out nice.
so yeah, we can get into that if you want. So what happened was like after a year and a half of development, I was broke. I was in debt for my short film because it made half its money back, which is amazing because it was, an expensive short film, but it didn't make all its money back. So I couldn't get the production assistant work again. And I was like, I'm just tired because production assistant work, you live in a paycheck to paycheck. And I started off my life as a nightclub promoter that made a lot of money. And I was just like tired of it. And I said, you know what? I'm so tired of these guys not wanting to make my movies. There's all this red tape. I said, I'm going to make my own movie. But I was broke. So I said, I'm going to be an entrepreneur again and I'm going to start a business. I just figured I had to start something. So, bake your noodle a little bit. But before all this, before I was a nightclub promoter, before I did stand up, I knew I wanted to be an actor and a filmmaker and a comedian. I also wanted to be an entrepreneur. And the first business I did a week after I graduated high school, I wasn't going to go to college, was start a tool company because that's what my dad did in the 60s.
Oh, okay. This is
right? And my dad went off, became a multimillionaire, but lost it all. He was a homeless kid. And then he became, a multimillionaire. And then he became homeless again after he was in this calculator business. But the business he had before the calculator business, they called him the calculator kid. But before that business, it was a tool business with a guy named Alan Smith. And Alan Smith, when my dad was off making good money with this calculator business, Alan Smith started a company called Harbor Freight. So I don't know if you ever heard of Harbor Freight. They have 300 stores across the country. They're like the import version of Home Depot.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They're like a $3 billion a year,
big. Yeah.
$3 billion a year company.
I'm clearly not doing a lot of building.
So I was like, I want to do that. This is like a long time ago, but they were still like huge. So I failed miserably. But when I started my own company, I said, look, I know how I grew up around that. I've seen this ebb and flow of failure and success. I said, I'm going to start my own thing on this new thing called the internet. And I'm going to sell a product that is like a tool. I don't want to sell tools. My dad's like, sell abrasive wheels, sell drill bits. I'm like, that's boring. I don't know. So one of the items that was tarps. I said, this makes sense to me. It's colorful. It's used for a lot of different things. I could see that it's adventurous a little bit. You could do different things with them. I said, I'm going to sell. And I heard like this guy that on the internet on the late 90s was selling ceiling fans and he made tons of money off of that off the internet. Heard if you want to make money on the internet, you got to sell a product, sell a widget. I said, I'm going to do that. And that's going to be my movie business. And I did it. Within 6 months, almost a year, I had made $500,000, and that gave me enough money to make the movie that I wanted to make, which was Love Hollywood Style, which
incredible
with Andy Dick and Coolio and Faye Dunaway, and that's why I started this business that I'm in today.
Now, what do you think was key for you for making that a success? Because let's be real, a lot of people try to do things like this and aren't always successful. So, what do you think was key for you for making that successful?
Desperation, number one. When I first made my first sale after a couple months, I made a first sale was like $17,500, which when you're trying to pay your rent check and don't know where your food's going to come from, you're like, I remember this. Here's a good story. So guys, I need $17,500 worth of tarps. It's Friday. I need it by Monday. I'm like, no problem. I'll get it for you. And it's all online. So they didn't know I had a storefront or whatever. Yeah. I'm working out of my house. I pick up my PA friend because I'm still like, I just segued out of becoming a production assistant still, living paycheck to paycheck. I pick him up. I go to Galpin Ford because I couldn't get a trucking company to deliver this product. So I get the Galpin Ford, which is the studio rental truck, and I packed this stuff in a studio truck because I had a deal on that. And then we drove on from LA to New York, no sleep, deliver the tarps. And I remember after I delivered them, I cried because it was around Christmas time. I said, I know where my rent's going to come from. I know where I'm going to get food now. And I can buy people presents for Christmas. So desperation is one. And when I don't know, I've just seen that.
You clearly did whatever you need to do to make it work. You drove across country to deliver those tarps and make that sale. So you're making.
That's what I saw my dad do. I saw my dad was successful when I was a young kid. And then I wanted to be the calculator kid too. That was like a thing. So I was always prepared for that and mentally. But then I saw him live in a van. And when he was fighting his way back, he would deliver these abrasive wheels and drill bits to body shops in this van that he was living out of to fight his way back after, because he was crazy lifestyle, just made a lot of poor mistakes. But I saw this and I I said, no matter what, you can make something happen. So I knew that no matter how low you can get, I've seen the highs and the lows from my dad, I guess.
What do you think you've learned from your dad that has served you the most?
The word that I grew up with is hustle. It's almost like becomes like a mantra, like just in your nervous system, to where it's a reaction, to where you have to hustle. When time comes, when everybody panics, you hustle. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the people think like, I can't do a business. Everything needs to be perfect. I barely graduated high school, and I knew I wasn't going to go to college because I saw my dad. He'd never finished the 8th grade, and I just didn't need to make the same mistakes he did and do what that guy Alan Smith did from Harbor Freight.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, I'm going to do that, but I'll be like my dad and love what you do. It doesn't have to be your dream, but love what you do and be a happy person.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I completely agree. Now we've talked about a lot of things. You've had a lot of successes. You've reached a lot of those goals that you set out to do. So I'm curious, what do you feel has been one or two of your greatest successes, and what did you learn from it?
Okay. When you want money, the first success, I made $1 million in a day. And I was like, wow.
Amazing. Yeah.
I was like, wow. I said, this is it. I'm never going to have a problem. I'm never going to have a problem again. You think that you're like, I know I'm going to have problems, but and that's not true. But that was a success, a monetary success.
Yes.
But I think that it's funny. I'm like Adam Sandler in the movie Happy Gilmore. He puts a hockey guy on top of his golf trophy.
Yeah. Yeah.
To me, when I am successful at stand-up comedy, and you really don't get paid that much at all to do that, then that's a success. Or somebody bet me one time because I was a fitness trainer, but then you have hills and valleys of fitness,
Mm-hmm.
and I looked like I was getting heavy fat. So somebody's like, you're going to end up like your dad, who ended up being fat, and you're not going to be able to do this the way you did. I said, I bet him $500 I could lose like 35 pounds in 3 months. And little things like that. When somebody says you can't do something, you end up doing it. But as far as my success, I've had monetary successes. My short film winning the 2 largest short film festivals in the world, that was a success because I
That's
really
pretty
wanted to do
exciting.
that. And I think I never thought I'd be successful because my dad wasn't successful at marriage. So I didn't think I'd be successful at marriage. But I think my wife, if she was here, she'd tell you I'm a good guy and I did well at that. So that's important to make it work on a day-to-day basis and get along with somebody and not have them be pissed off at you.
Yeah.
That seems like a win.
It's a big accomplishment to have a long-term relationship where you still like each other at least.
Yeah. And you're like, have fun with them and you're not resentful. And
Yeah.
it's really a nice, harmonious relationship. And your kids seem like you have a good relationship with them. To me, that's a success.
That's a big win. It really is. Yeah. Now, what about the flip side? What about a time that you failed or big challenge or obstacle, and what did you learn from it?
You don't have enough on the time on this all the failures because I have way more many failures than I've had successes.
Isn't that true with successful people though?
I'm ready for the embarrassment. So when I was making money, I don't know what they call it, ADHD or whatever. Somebody was working for me. I'm like, I'm so busy. You get the insurance. I just bought an Escalade. Get the insurance for me. And so I had 6 weeks of temporary insurance when you get a new car. And 2 days after that 6-week insurance, I never checked with her. She got the insurance. I thought I just spaced on it. And the car gets stolen and I lost all of the insurance couldn't cover my car. That's bad. That job when I started to tool business a day after I graduated high school, I failed miserably. I made 2 sales and I didn't do anything after that. I went to City College and that's when I became a nightclub promoter 6 months later. So I guess out of all, like whenever there's a failure, it always seems like out of desperation. Once again, the success comes. So I became the number 1 nightclub promoter in my age bracket after 6 months after I failed at that business miserably. A lot more failures though. I always say this on the podcast or whatever, that Glenn Close in the movie The Natural says, I believe we have 2 lives, one that you learn with and one that you live with after that. And I definitely feel anybody that's younger, that's trying to be an entrepreneur, that failure and they have a little bit of success, just remember those successes. And you just need to grab onto those, but you're going to make a lot of mistakes. And then the other half of your life, you maybe learn with that. And then you go off from there and you do a lot better.
You do a lot of living. I like that. It's very true. We are doing a lot of living of the learning that we've done, have we not? With all of those things, because It's interesting how you said that, because you've had a lot of successes, and you mentioned how you've had these successes, you're doing great, and then you might have found yourself broke afterwards, and then you went and did this. And so and I bring this up because you have been successful at a young age. Like you were successful at a young age, and you've been successful in your 20s and your 30s, your 40s. So what do you think is key to continued success in life?
Real quick, the first like 10 years of my life, I had learning disabilities. I was physically challenged. I was a premature baby. I grew up in a broken home. I grew up with my grandmother telling me the mantra of, look, you're lucky to be alive because she escaped the Russian concentration camps at gunpoint. So, and then hearing that I was lucky to be born because I was an oops baby. My mom would sit there and say, I love my youngest son, but I drank, I smoked, I ran up and down the stairs. I'm like, Mom, they just want to order ranch or blue cheese dressed. We tell them what you want to order. She just tell everybody the story. So you hear this over and over again. It's okay. I think that you can only go up. And I think sometimes that's a good thing. What have I learned from the successes though?
What's key to continued success? What do you think has helped you be successful in your 20s and your 30s and your 40s? Is there something that has helped you keep going?
Yeah. I think that it's all a head game.
Hmm.
I think that anybody can have success. I think that it's a muscle, and we need to, there's almost like an inner incantation that we need to tell ourselves. And in acting, there's a great teacher named Eric Morris who does it's called the Superman exercise. You basically count your blessings because you have so many failures, but you need to start to add up all the wins, and you need to tell yourself and build a crescendo of positivity, because most people do look at the weeds in their garden, but you got to take the weeds out, be cognitive of what caused them and clean it up.
Yes.
And then boom, you build a crescendo of like positivity and momentum to where give yourself a mental environment to succeed. And I think that's key every day, nuts and bolts of doing every day, going in that fashion.
Yeah. I love that. You're right. Obviously, we need to pull out the weeds, but I love that you said we need to figure out why they grew there and
Well,
get
sure, you got to do that. You can't just say, "Oh, positivity, positive, everything's great." No, if something, I don't care if I can swear on here, but
go ahead.
your life is shit. You're acting like shit. You make no sense when you say you got to mind three things when it comes to success, and that is everything's emotions. And it's the triad of emotions, and I talk about this all the time. It's your physiology, your focus, and your vocabulary. So if you're sitting there and you're focusing on shit and you're talking the things that are not enabling you for success, and your physiology is droopy and your face is drawn, that's a recipe for failure. If you want to succeed on the day-to-day nuts and bolts, because we have thousands of impasses, our workday and our life is constantly like a plane that is guided by a computer off and on course constantly. That's how planes work. They're on a computer, and autopilot's constantly taking on and off course to readjust. And if you don't use your guiding light as your focus, physiology, and your vocabulary, your inner vocabulary, you will get whatever 99% is going to be that product of that. How could you ever be successful focusing on your failures, talking internally and externally about your failures, and then putting your body in the position of how you feel about your failures? It's just a recipe for disaster.
You're
So
so right. Our
do the
words are
opposite.
powerful.
Every day you got to have to enable yourself for success.
Yes. And how we hold ourselves, our body language, the way we speak, the words we use. Yes, it all adds up. It's very interesting. You mentioned that you had a lot of struggles when you were younger and had a lot of things that you had to deal with. I'm curious, what has helped you push through your difficult times?
I learned it's making people laugh. I think you find some kind of success. I was lucky enough to find some kind of success. So as the youngest, I turned out to be the entertainer. So I was like the comedian. People would make fun of me sometimes. So the only way I would laugh at myself, self-deprecate or whatever, just get people to laugh. And that was the reward. So that was the first success. The second success, you're like, wow, that's just, you don't feel like you're successful still with one success. The second success was when I saw the movie Rocky when I was like 9 or 10 years old. I saw a guy like me. He was funny. He wasn't successful, but he kept on trying, but he wasn't smart. The only difference is that he was fit and I was not. So I started exercising every day. Exercising was a way of my life. So from 10 years old, I felt like that's when my life changed, because by the time I was 16, I became a physical fitness trainer.
Oh,
And I had really great success with physical fitness. So I said, okay, I'm funny and I'm good at physical fitness. And it only really took two things to really think, I think that everything could be like this. As long as you work it out like a muscle, everything could be like that.
Yes. We work it out like a muscle and apply it over and over. I was just going to say, you started young. You put your mind
Yeah.
to it and you did it young and you
I
just
needed that time though. I was a basket case. Needed all the extra time I can get.
I feel when you're a basket case when you're younger, it gives you a lot of perspective, if you will, for when you're older, if you ask me. A little bit of
I guess I think so. I don't know why. I guess I feel like I'm an underdog constantly, and I like it. I like it because that's an ownership of that I've taken. I've chosen to take that ownership of that, and it's okay as long as you feel like you have a. I felt like I'm as an older person. I feel like I have a pathway to success that feeds me every day. You feel like I feel like it's my cause celeb now, and you give yourself purpose behind those things that maybe were disadvantages in the past.
did you always have a sense of what your purpose was? Or is that something that you had to stop and figure out at one point?
No, when you're young, everything, so much wasted time on the young. But when I had ADHD, I was put in a special school for special needs kids at like when I was, I don't know, second grade. And you feel when my dad was successful, I'm like, maybe he just pays for people to like be friends with me. You don't trust anybody because people would make funny all the time. So everybody must feel that way. And then you start to see, I grew up in a really dysfunctional home, like meaning like my dad was very crazy lifestyle. Well, speaking of boogie nights, I don't know, we haven't talked about that, but
Yeah, no, you're in boogie nights as well. Okay, go with that. What was the boogie nights with your dad? You were going
he,
some
he was like, he had, there's characters that are loosely based on his personality. It's like he had orgy parties. I was surrounded around like sex and drugs at a young age where I never
and
like, it was around me. Like I'd walk into he wasn't living with my mom. I'd walk into this greenhouse, had green artwork and green Cadillac out in front and everything was green. See, there was like, were there people here last night? I could feel that energy. You feel like the walls are still moving. And it's just that I had, you grew up with a crazy Russian grandmother and I had a big family and you're the youngest. And some people got involved in my dad's lifestyle. Some people didn't out of the family. It was crazy. Yeah. As far as the Boogie Nights connection, my first acting job was playing Dirk Diggler in the Dirk Diggler story. I played Dirk Diggler and that eventually became the movie Boogie Nights, which I appear in as well. So that's the whole Boogie Nights connection.
Yeah, no, what an experience at that age too. What did you learn from that experience? That's what I want to know.
Oh, from being in the Dirk Diggler story?
Yeah, yeah.
I was 20 and I was a nightclub promoter and I learned, I didn't think anybody was going to, you don't see anybody be successful at film because you grew up in LA and you're like, everybody wants to be an actor. Everybody wants to be a filmmaker. This is so rare. And to see a friend of yours that starts from nothing also and becomes successful, you're like, holy shit, I could do that too.
Exactly.
Because at this point, I'm thinking, well, I've done stand-up. I'm a nightclub promoter. I did a good job acting in that thing. And I can make films. And that's why just when you see other people do it, I think that's the thing. You got to believe in yourself. You believe that there's no difference between some old guy that's been successful and the young people. It's just repetition.
Yeah.
Plus time, plus effort.
Mm-hmm. And it really hits home when it's a friend of yours too, when you know the person, like all their ins and outs and all of those. And you're like, hey man, if this guy can do it, I can do it. But that's the beauty. When you embody everything that you've got going on for you and you actually move forward with it, you give other people permission to do the same. And that's what's really cool about that.
Agreed.
So I'm curious, what is something that you've learned throughout all of your experiences that you feel has brought you the most benefit in your life?
That's a good question. What has brought the most benefit? What have I learned that gives me the most benefit? Well, for me personally, I can't speak for it, but prepare. Preparation is 95% success. And when you're an ADHD person like me, or whatever they call, I don't know, give it anything. I've been told I have that, but maybe some self-evident here today. But when you prepare, that's 95% of the challenge right there. So prepare, but then act. You have to be able to act. Some people prepare and then I'll pull the trigger. You've got to be able to prepare as much as you can, as much as you can stomach. And then you have to have a dead goal, a goal where like, I don't care if I'm ready or not. This is the goal. I've given myself more than enough time for this. This is something I really want. So set a goal date, a day for that, and then just prepare as much as you can and take massive action. And also start immediately when you set that goal, immediate action. So those are like three things that are really important there. Preparation, first of all, set your goal date. Find out when you prepare, you find out when can this happen, whatever it is, the success that I want. That's the date that this has to start, the hard date. And then what can you do immediately? You have to do something right away to set your nervous system in motion for that. So you have to, if you're going to start a podcast, you have to like do something right now. As soon as the podcast is over, if you want to start a podcast, you need to go to Zencaster or something, and you need to purchase it or whatever, learn everything about it. You say, and then set a date. I'm going to do it on this day and this day, and you have to do it. That's my
great advice. Really great advice. And the setting the date, that is hitting home for me because I have some things I'm working on and I have not set that date. So I'm actually, after this, going to put a date in my calendar of when that's going to have to be done. So that's good stuff.
The date is important.
Yeah. Now, before I ask any of those questions, I'm just wondering if you have any stories rattling around in your head that are what you would believe to be one of your more entertaining stories that you think would be worth sharing with the audience.
God, I got several. You want like one that's, I don't know, film related? I'll give you, okay, here's a film.
Whatever you think is the funniest one.
I don't know if it's the funniest one, but it's an interesting one. Okay. It's funny. But so I was doing extra work before I did my first acting role. This was a year before that. And I wanted to be an actor. So I'm being an extra on a movie called Less Than Zero. When I was promoting my first nightclub. And I was handing out invitations, got to see Andrew McCarthy. And then I'm hanging out with this guy, this blonde-haired guy. And he and I were hanging out for 3 days. And he's showing me all around the sets there. And I was like, he's an extra also. And he's been working on other, days. I say, yeah, what are the days you work? I passed around a football on this day and this day. We're doing party scenes. He goes, hey, you want to meet Robert Downey Jr.? Like, yeah, that'd be great. The guy from Weird Science, and he's really cool because he wasn't a huge star yet, but he was in cool circles. And we're shooting nights. So he gets out of his trailer at 5:30 at night, just woke up, and he's like, disheveled. I was like, anybody got a light? And I was like, wow, this guy's really cool. Not like Andrew McCarthy, who tore up my invite. And then I'm just walking around, and I got the guy's number that I hung out with for 3 days. It introduced me to Robert Downey Jr., and he said he was trying to get acting work. And then it took me like 3 or 4 of his movies to like figure out. I was like, holy crap, it's Brad Pitt. I was like, wow, that was, really wish he went to my club and we became better friends. Yeah. And here's the sad thing. This is the insecurity. When I was still promoting clubs. I was doing a gambling party at Sundance. Mm-hmm. And I went to Paul Thomas Anderson's. He did his first movie called Hard Eight. And in that movie, Gwyneth Paltrow was in the movie, and she was dating Brad Pitt at the time. Mm-hmm. And we're sitting there with her mom, Blythe Danner, and Gwyneth Paltrow, and Brad Pitt, and Paul's girlfriend, and a couple other people. And I was like, I could easily go up to him right now and just say, I hung out for 3 days, but this is the insecurity, the imposter syndrome, whatever you want to call it. This is the insecurity. I'm still in my 20s at the point, And then I was like, I don't want to talk to Brad now and tell him that I want to wait till I'm up, because I was like, my own career, I was just going to segue out of clubs and get into filmmaking. I was like, when I'm a big filmmaker, he'll be in one of my films, and then I'll just talk to him then. Yeah. And I haven't talked to him since. And I was like, we sat at the table for like an hour and a half and lunch at this place and get up and dance. And so that's a little weird story there.
You're taking an opportunity, one of those, which makes me wonder, do you have any regrets in life? A
lot. Yeah. Everybody's got regret. So would you really change anything? Yeah, sure I would if you had a chance. But you wouldn't change anything and not knowing if you're going to go back and not know anything.
Yeah.
But if you could know what you know now, yeah. But yeah, tons of regrets. You burn through so much money in business, making so many mistakes. Advertising mistakes, business choice mistakes, just stupid mistakes, buying crap that you don't need, not investing in certain things. Like when somebody says, yeah, the Winklevoss they invested in this Bitcoin thing. And I'm telling you, you have to do it. Nah, it's stupid. So there's so many mistakes.
Bitcoin over that one too.
Like my friends, you just do stupid. Some things are good. I wear something like a badge, like my friend who said, look, we're going to be opening up, our band is opening up at the Whiskey on Sunset. It's a big iconic place, the Doors, and every big band in the world played there. I'm like, well, this is when I started doing stand-up. Like it was my second gig. I was like, I'm gonna do stand-up there. They don't know it, but I'm gonna do stand-up because I got a free crowd. I don't have to wait in line. So I got booed off stage because they're like, we don't want to hear a comedian want to just introduce the band. Who could say they got kicked off the stage at the whiskey? That was fun. That was good.
You can put that on your bucket list.
I didn't get booed. I got kind of escorted by a friend.
That's cool.
I got booed off stage once. I wasn't doing stand-up. I got booed off stage when I was doing that documentary tour that I told you about.
Yes.
We showed the LA documentary that I did at 12 different cities. And when I went to New Orleans, I said, okay, everybody, we plan out to where there's one movie room, like a documentary room, and then there's a big dance room. Because people come in the room and say, oh, we're talking. So it was like this whole thing. I get to this big, glorious, like beautiful arena. And then the guy's like, yeah, this is it. I said, where's the documentary room? Where's the theater room? No, this is gonna be it. There's just stop the music at midnight. And everybody's really excited about it. It's like, you're going to get 1,300 people and you're going to stop the music and I'm going to talk to them on some video screen right here. Yeah, it's going to be great. Everybody's really excited about it. I was like, you're an idiot. I said, okay, no problem. It's your money. Let's just do it. I got booed off stage so bad. It was so like, and I walked off. And I don't know if you've ever been to New Orleans, go to Bourbon Street.
Love New Orleans, yes.
And it's the first time I've ever been there. And I'm walking down, the bar's just opening up because I got booed off stage and the bar's open late there. I'm walking down there. I'm like, excuse me. And my DJ friend's still DJing. And I'm like alone now, clubbing.
After
like, excuse me, do you know where I could find like a place to get some oysters around here? And he walks right up to me and he hawks a loogie and spits it on the floor of his own saloon and says, there's your damn oyster.
Oh.
I just got booed off stage. Yeah. This guy, I feel like there's no humanity in the world. So I just go to O'Brien's where they have the blended drinks, and I got each one of those. And that's
each one.
Yeah.
So that's how you dealt with the booing. You're like, I'm just gonna go.
I don't drink either, so that was like fun. Yeah.
Had a great time in the New Orleans streets that night. Okay, I just want to ask for the quiz because you've mentioned this gambling thing. So did you start this gambling in the backstages of Hollywood?
It's a really great story. So my friend Eddie Hara, I think he's supposed to be related to the Harrah's Hotels.
Okay.
You could look it up. He wanted to do a club and he wanted to do gambling in it. So I was the nightclub promoter and they wanted to do the gambling. So they didn't cut me in on the gambling. So I'm bringing in all the people. Mm-hmm. And I have another friend of mine, this guy, Larry Pollock. He won't care that I mention his name. He actually ended up owning, at the time, he was a fledgling nightclub promoter, but he owns the Saddle Ranch restaurants right now.
Cool.
Mechanical Bull on Sunset.
Yes, did that for a birthday one year.
Okay, cool. So that's my friend Larry, and Larry comes to me and says, "Mike, I want you to do this. These guys, do it on Friday nights with me. You could still do the Sweet Daddy Brown's thing that they called it. It was a very big club in LA. It was huge dancing and then this gambling thing." And I said, "It's a different night. They won't care. It has to be on Friday. I can't do it on Saturday because I'm doing this." I said, "No problem." Larry's concept, he's a really good mind. Larry's concept was, let's just get hotel suites, like the nicest hotel suites on Sunset, like the Mondrian or Chateau Marmont, whatever. Sometimes adjoining suites. And we'll just have the gambling. We'll let people in for free. We'll do pari-mutuel. We'll let them go 1 out of 5, and 1 out of $5 just goes to the house. So the faster you are. So we had professional dealers. It was free drinks. It was like a really high-end kind of thing. It blows up. It becomes like a huge thing. And the other guys start to get upset about it because they figure some people are like saying, this is the new shit. This is much better. And I'm like, I'm a part of both. And they're getting upset. Like, you got to quit that and just do this. And I was like, well, you guys didn't cut me on the gambling and this has nothing to do with you. It's on a different night. So there was somebody that owned a bar that I got approached that was basically related to the Castellano family. Uh-huh. So they wanted to be partners, so to speak. And this is the problem with doing anything that's not legal. So lo and behold, we stopped because West Hollywood Police Department actually found out what we're doing because there was like 300 people waiting to get inside. There were 300 people on Sunset.
Oh, wow.
And we didn't have invites. It called select people, like a list. It was like, in those days, it was a phone call. Huh. You had passwords to get into it was crazy. So that's how I got the idea to do. We built the tables ourselves. We had professional chips.
Well, you got something to fall back on.
Yeah, I wrote a screenplay about it. Somebody said, "You write a movie about it." I did write a movie about it, and I almost got a movie deal from it, but I had to make Love Hollywood style instead because I was pissed off.
So that one's in your back pocket too. We might see that one day. You never know.
I get once in a while somebody from back then. I just wrote a screenplay a year and a half ago, which has nothing. It's about a dysfunctional family in wine country up in Northern California, which I'm not from, but I just liked it up there. So I started shopping that around, and then people say, well, this is not right for us because we want something more action oriented. And they see that, and then they're like, yeah, we like this script, but it's a tough business. And I my other business does so well. So oddly enough, what I'm doing now is that crazy film that I told you about, that Love
Mhm.
Hollywood Style.
Mhm.
We just found all the footage. The filmmaker, another filmmaker friend of mine, when he was starting out his career, he filmed the whole making of me struggling with my business that almost
Ooh,
bottomed out, working out of the house, work out of this rented,
interesting.
shack that I lived in Sherman Oaks, and the whole thing with trying to get Faye Dunaway and Andy Dick and all these crazy actors and to be in this film that just kept on blowing up, and me struggling working out of this with the whole thing. But it was a crazy production, and I almost lost my whole business that I started for the film. So we're doing a documentary about, it's called Burning the Boats, and it's about passion versus opportunity and what people will throw away in their life to try to reach their dream.
I love it. I can't wait to watch that. That sounds fascinating. Anything else on your horizon that you're working on?
Burning the Boats is that and my tarp business is, it sounds funny, but we're inventing a product. It's weird because people say, what the heck? How are you doing this kind of conventional business and you still want to do something in entertainment? It doesn't make sense. I guess my life doesn't make sense, but we are expanding the business to where we're launching in a little over a year from now. We're launching a branded product of a very special type of tarp
Great.
that will hopefully define this industry the same way that like Yeti defined the cooler.
Cool. Very
And so there's that.
That's
There's the
exciting.
documentary Burning the Boats. And
Podcast.
before the year, I promised my friends out here, I live in Georgetown, Texas. I don't live out in LA. I promised I would start doing stand up at the local place out here, Barrels and Amps in Georgetown, Texas.
Great. Great. Getting back to it. And then now tell us a little bit about your podcast, the listeners, because it's a
Yeah, there's
great
that.
podcast.
That's why I'm here to promote the podcast. Long Shot Leaders. It's Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We break out a new episode. And it's about people that have overcome large obstacles to find success. People that want to talk about miserable, wonderful, glorious failures, and also how they found success and what they did to attain that, and share their life. I like to tell a story about their life, the
Mhm.
origin of their life, because I think that we learn by the story of someone, not
Mhm.
just like about the how-tos of them.
Yeah, I agree. Agree. So before we wrap up, I love to ask people, this is one of my favorite questions. What is it that you are sure of in life?
Death, that's one. Taxes are not so sure because you can go to Puerto Rico and you really only pay 4%, so barely. But I'll just go with the granted, death is the only sure thing in life
It is the only
because everything else is pretty much. You would say that if you're 5'6", you can play in the NBA, but Spud Webb denied that reality. A lot of things are possible. I can't think of much more other than death. Is you can't fight that. You can't beat that.
Can't.
Time is the only enemy, as Charlie Chaplin used to say.
Oh, I like that. Time is the only enemy. All the things that you've seen, because I figure you've probably watched a lot of movies, been in Hollywood, what have you, seen a lot of talks. Has there ever been a movie or talk or book or something that had a big impact on your life that you think others would benefit from as well?
Of course, it's Rocky. When I was a kid, I had to go to a psychologist after the first couple of years of saying that because we had it on VHS and I would watch it every day. And the kid comes home from school and that's all he does is watch Rocky. As far as that, yeah, that's obviously I do a podcast called Long Shot Leaders. Obviously, I like, but I think that looking back on, not to be poetic about it or not answer your question, but looking back on your own failures and trying to find a way to not look at them like they're so bad.
Mhm.
Look at them. Every failure I've ever had, I've been cheated on by girlfriends and fiance. A lot of people like just me try to you either date your mother or father. I dated my dad for a while, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And so you look at all your failures and try to turn it into something that will inspire you.
Mhm.
So when I did stand-up comedy, of course, comedy set in the negative. I would look at all your failures to inspire you. And you're always going to get inspired by your wins, but wouldn't it be great if you could learn from your failures and then have those inspire you and that make your mission to overcome those?
Yes.
So
Right.
that's what I would say. I would say if you want to get inspired, look at your own story. And on that note, if anybody has a long shot story, go to longshotleaders.com and contact us because I'm just happy as a clam talking to people like you and talking about long shot stories, talking about how people overcame their obstacles.
Me too. It's wonderful. Thank you so much, Michael. This has been a great talk. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I loved Michael's story. There is so much to learn here. Michael had struggles when he was younger. He was made fun of. He had learning disabilities and ADD. His parents divorced. His dad lived a wild life, wild enough to have a character influence on the movie Boogie Nights. And then his dad lost all his money, causing him to go homeless before he was able to work his way back. Michael felt out of place and awkward in his turbulent world until he was inspired by the movie Rocky. Michael saw Rocky, a guy that he felt was like him, not as smart, not as successful, but he kept trying. He kept giving it his all and going after everything he wanted with heart. The power of a story. The story of Rocky changed everything for Michael. He was inspired to get himself strong and healthy, and he got into peak physical fitness, becoming a physical fitness trainer at the age of 16. This was transformative for him to see that setting a goal and taking those daily steps added up to an incredible metamorphosis and accomplishment. He realized if he could do that with physical fitness, he could do that with anything. What an amazing lesson to learn so early in life. Every big goal that feels overwhelming is simply a series of baby steps taken each day. You can learn anything and reach whatever goal you've been dreaming about with persistent effort over time. Set your intention and think about, what baby step can I take today? And then do it. Then tomorrow, ask yourself the same question, and then the next day, and the next day. Growing up and watching the ebb and flow of failure and success through his dad taught Michael a lot. He learned early on how to hustle and how to successfully apply that skill to life. As Michael said, when everyone panics, that's when you hustle. Knowing what he knew about opportunity and ability, knowing that anything is possible with hard work and dedication, Michael skipped college and started a tool company right out of high school. Then when he was 20, his friend cast him as the star in the Dirk Diggler story, which later became the film Boogie Nights. And Michael watched his good friend go from nothing to extremely successful. There is something powerful that happens when a friend goes after their dreams. We tend to put our heroes on a pedestal because we don't really know them. But knowing someone closely makes them human. So watching someone that you know to be deeply human do amazing things, it makes you realize, hey, if they can do it, I can do it too. You just have to believe in yourself. When you go after your own goals, not only are you doing something wonderful for yourself, but you are also silently giving permission to others to do the same. You never know the impact you'll make by simply trying. Now, Michael wanted to learn about production, so he started the industry as a low-level employee so that he could learn everything he could about production. He watched what the pros did, took the best of the best lessons, and figured out how to emulate that before going on to create his own documentaries. This is brilliant. Think about all of the mistakes and heartache Michael avoided by taking the time to learn the best practices of the thing he wanted to master. This is an incredibly intelligent strategy, and in this day and age, we now have so many ways to learn best practices from masters. What are you wanting to learn? What projects would you like to accomplish? I would bet there are successful people on YouTube ready to fill you in on all the best practices for free. There are also lots of companies like Masterclass that offer amazing opportunities for learning. Or best of all, like Michael, you can get a job in the industry you want to excel in and get paid to learn all the ins and outs and best practices possible. And not only that, but you'll make all the connections with people who are also passionate about the same thing and who could eventually be a helpful part of your own journey. Whichever method you choose, as Michael shares, preparation is 95% of success. Once you get all that learning and preparation taken care of, you're 95% there. The last 5% is a crucial part. You must act. You are not looking for perfection here. Remember, perfection is the enemy of progress. You're simply looking for preparation. So prepare yourself as best possible, but then move forward. Michael suggests setting a goal date, a date when you will start and a date of when you expect to finish. Once you've made the decision and you've chosen your dates, then do something small right away that very same day. Like we talked about earlier, take that baby step to set yourself in motion. So I ask you, what do you want to accomplish? Take some time tonight to think about something you'd like to tackle, and then pick your dates and make a promise to yourself that you will allow yourself this gift of time and accomplishment for whatever is most important to you in this moment. Michael took everything he learned in the industry and went on to create documentaries and short films. He loved the work so much, he decided to move forward with his next personal goal, getting one of his screenplays produced into a full feature film. Michael began the journey to reach that goal, but after years of red tape and frustrations, he realized if this was going to happen, he was going to have to do it himself. And I love this. I love this. This is where greatness is made, when you realize that you can do it yourself. Of course, it is always easier said than done, but anything is possible with persistence. And Michael did it. Now, let's be clear. Michael was thousands of dollars in debt with $13 in his bank account when he made the decision to make a feature film himself and realized he needed to make a lot of money. Now, once again, the ever important lesson of the hustle came to serve Michael in his time of need. He decided he was going to start a company. Now, he did not stop to question if he was worthy. He did not stop to question if he was the right person to run a company, if he had the capability and know-how. Again, he was taught at an early age that hustle is blind to everything but opportunity. Anyone can hustle, and so that is what he did. He decided he was going to sell a product on the internet, decided on the product of tarps, and he started moving forward. Within a year, he had made the money needed to produce his own feature-length film, Love Hollywood Style. He reached the goal he set out to accomplish. And not only that, to date, his company, Abadak, has made over $100 million and has donated thousands of tarps to the needy. Absolutely incredible. The power of belief in self is awe-inspiring. I have said this before, but I'm going to say it again. Our minds are capable of so much more than we realize. Our brains are our supercomputers, and our self-talk and our beliefs are the programs that will run it. Tell yourself you are not able to do something, boom. Your brain says, okay, you're not able to do that. When you argue for your limitations, when you mentally and verbally embrace them, then you get to keep them. Whatever you are telling yourself, those thoughts become unconscious programs for our mind. So what kind of programming are you giving yourself? What is your self-talk doing for you? Pay attention to how you are speaking to yourself. If you are giving yourself poor programming, it is time to change the messaging. Give yourself the right kind of input and watch how much more smoothly your own operating system will run. Clearly, the right mindset is not all that is needed here. As Michael shared, success is followed by hard work. He did not just snap his fingers and have his tarp company become a success overnight. In fact, I loved his story of his first sale. This is a perfect example of what it takes to make things happen. He got his first big order for tarps, over $17,000 worth of tarps, of which he did not have in his possession. But he did not question it. He did not balk or say, I'll get back to you. He grabbed the opportunity as soon as it was presented to him. He seized the day. He said, yes. And then he figured out how to make it happen. This is a mark of successful people. They do not wait for things to happen. When presented with an opportunity, even if they know nothing, have no idea how to accomplish it, they will jump and say yes, and then figure out how to make it work. Successful people make things happen. They do not look for excuses. They look for solutions. Think about the problem you've been dealing with. Think about every excuse you've used with yourself and with others. Now scrap those excuses. You are capable. I suggest spending time tonight and think of a solution for each of those perceived excuses you've allowed to stop you. It's time to move forward. As Michael shared, success is a head game. Anybody can have success. It's a mind muscle that we have to practice at and keep sharp. We have to stay aware, counting our blessings, adding up all the wins, and building that crescendo of positivity to carry us through. I love how Michael put it. Too many people are looking at the weeds, but what they need to do is take out the weeds, become cognizant of how they were created so they can clean up their garden, plant the right flowers, and stay aware of keeping healthy growth in the future. You want to create that fertile mental environment to set you up for success. Michael suggested staying aware of 3 things when it comes to your success: your physiology, your focus, and your vocabulary. If you are focusing on everything negative in your life, if you're focusing on the things that you cannot control, if your focus is on all the things that you don't want in your life and your conversations are filled with the negatives, if your body is carrying the weight with the drooped shoulders, the drawn face, the tense forehead, this is a recipe for disaster. Our thoughts, our body language, the way we speak, all of these things have a huge impact on our personal world. Bring awareness to how you are holding yourself and the words that you are using. If you're feeling down, try using a power pose. Studies have shown that standing in the Wonder Woman pose, your legs spread, arms at the side, head up, chest out, within less than 2 minutes, this pose actually changes the chemistry in your brain, helping you feel more confident and more positive. A power pose not only reflects power, but it also creates power inside of you. Smiling is also incredibly powerful. Smiling when you don't feel like it will change your mood. Smiling tricks your brain into feeling more positive and therefore more confident. The bottom line is you can fake it until you make it. By simply acting confident, you can trick your brain into being more confident. Once you've hacked your feelings through power posing and smiling, pay close attention to the words you use. For example, you can take a certain situation, you can label it as an obstacle or a challenge, and it will feel frustrating. It will feel heavy, like something that you have to overcome. Or you can use the word adventure or exploration, and those words will make you feel excited, ready, curious, something that you want to do. Same situation, completely different experience. Bring awareness and positive change to your words, your thoughts, and your body language, and you will find that positive change reflected in your life experiences. I love that Michael took his disadvantages and turned them into his purpose. He took ownership of his underdog status and used it as a pathway to his success. I fully identify with this as well. There have been a few times when I've been told I would fail, and that seemed to be all the motivation I needed to not give up and succeed. Thank you to my previous boss for that, who told everyone in the office I would be out of business within 6 months, and it has now been over 20 years. If someone tries to tell you that you cannot do something that is exciting and important to you, use that as the fuel and motivation needed to go out and succeed. Do as Michael did. Think of every underdog movie you've ever seen and put yourself in that starring role. Visualize that successful montage and then go out there and do it yourself. I'll leave you with one of Michael's final thoughts. It is so important to reframe the way you look at failure. Successful people have a ton of failures, and I call them perceived failures because the ultimate lesson that successful people learn is that there is no failure. There is only learning, which is why so often success is born from the failure. Look back at your own perceived failures. Can you reframe it into something that inspires you? I had another perceived failure this past weekend. I was given an amazing opportunity by someone that I consider a mentor, and the opportunity went well for the most part, but I did make a big mistake at one point, and that mistake was also a rudeness to this person who gave me this opportunity. It was a 2-second moment, but it was long enough to erase all the good in my mind from the 2 hours before. I felt awful. Oh, I felt like an ass. I beat myself up over it for a bit, and I likely would have reamed myself for weeks if it weren't for everything I've learned from doing this podcast. I have learned so much through all these conversations, and it is very clear that self-flagellation, wallowing in your own mental pain, helps no one. It does not make any situation better. It only makes things worse for everyone involved, especially yourself. What is important is to learn from the experience. So after a few hours of festering negative feelings, I sat quietly and I thought deeply about all the things that I could learn from the experience. And you know what? There was so much there that if I hadn't taken the time to really think about, I might have missed. I learned why I reacted the way I did. I learned the way it feels when I act in a way that others often treat me. I learned that I have tolerated being treated a certain way that is now affecting me negatively, and I can no longer be tolerable. I need to make changes. I learned with a certainty in my bones that I will not make the same mistake again, which is an oddly freeing feeling. I learned what immediate grace, kindness, and forgiveness feels like when given freely, which also gave me the opportunity to learn the right way to treat others when I find myself in the opposite position. Then I learned how much better of an experience life is when I go through my mistakes or my failures with this mindset, rather than ripping into myself, marinating in the negative feelings, and letting it color my world, and therefore the world of others around me, for much longer than warranted. So that is my wish. That is my wish for you all. That you can reframe and learn from all of your perceived failures, allowing them to motivate you while finding inspiration in your own story. Until next time. Thank you for joining us on Fresh Blood. Subscribe and follow us on all streaming services, including Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Player FM. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Fresh Blood Podcast. If you like today's episode, please consider giving us a like and sharing with a friend. I hope you make today a most fulfilling day.